You are listening to the Wick, Doer Dagner's official podcast. Although this is the pilot episode, I want to jump right in, and I figured what better way to get started than to interview somebody. So, shortly you'll be hearing an interview conducted over Skype between Bradley and myself. I hope you all enjoy it. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to our first interview. Today we will be interviewing Bradley. He's been a member of Doer Dagner since it was founded back in August of 2007. Bradley, it's good to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
Good, Park. I'm glad to be here.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a few questions. The first one, what is your character name and your character backstory?
Well, my character name is Alexander DeVere, and his backstory is that he is a traveling elf. And now, throughout his story, the longer you know me as a person, you find out that he actually has more than one personality and more names. For the sake of conversation, most people just call me Ged, because that's who I am normally, although specifically, right now I'm playing Alexander DeVere. You see, he has these multiple personalities because he picked up this magical gem called the Grey Gem, which has so many facets, but for each of the facets on the gem, there's a personality, which gives me some time to think of a lot of unique people and unique personalities depending on the event I'm at or just how I feel like.
Interesting. Now, so you said this gem is going to give you several different personalities. What kind of personalities are you looking for here? You know, a lot of diversity in them, or?
Yes, there's quite a lot of diversity. For example, one of them is slightly psychotic. One of the others is one of my new favorites that I've been working on, is Bradkiss the Strong. He is a more Roman-like character, a little more aggressive, more for my use when I'm fighting with something like a shield. Alexander DeVere is more used for really technical fighting, kind of more technique.
Interesting. Okay, so that actually segues into our next question. What is your fighting style like?
Well, my fighting style is usually I'm a reasonably defensive fighter. I'm fairly well defensively, I would say. I hate getting legged because I end up sitting there defending for sometimes 5-6 minutes without the person I'm fighting managing to kill me, which always annoys me because I hate standing there getting my knee grounded into the gravel, honestly. And so mainly I like to fight with two swords because I like the technique of that, and eventually once I get my skills as high as they can possibly go, I will be an even match for those with a shield. Although I do plan on fighting with a shield on occasion, like larger battles in which archers would be a definite problem to a guy with no way to block the arrows.
Now, here's an interesting question for you. A lot of people will consider a sword and shield to be the best defense, and a two-weapon fighting to be fairly offensive. And you said you like to fight defensively. What would you tell all those people that would say that fighting with two weapons is an offensive style?
Well, they are mostly right, and that is a problem I've come up several times in my fighting, because I have found that I am not always suitably aggressive depending on the day and depending on how I'm feeling. So that's kind of how my players' personalities, my characters' personalities, feed into this, because these personalities allow me to pick a certain outlook. Because Alexander DeVere, you'll notice that I normally only use two weapons, and I'm going for a certain outlook when I do that. When I'm Bradkiss the Strong, I might decide to pick up a shield just because I might want to slaughter more orcs, per se. And it's, for all those out there who think sword and board is the most defensive style, I would think that that can be true, but I personally like having two weapons just for the blocking options. I like to be mobile, and I feel the shield does not always allow me to be mobile.
Interesting. So you feel that you play defensively, but you want to be able to preserve the sort of the spirit of offense by using offensive weapons.
Yes. Because with a shield, I cannot attack with a shield, even if it's light and mobile, and I can block their blows with it. To me, a shield that I can block with, the only extra thing it's good for is blocking arrows. That's about it.
Interesting. Okay. So your preferred style of weapons are two long swords?
Yes, two longer swords, although not too long. I'm thinking of getting into a red two-handed style just because the way I was taught to use a sword, just a normal long sword, is with two hands, and most people in Dagger here use it in one hand, which, historically speaking, which is kind of ironic, is fairly unrealistic, because you would need a shorter sword to be able to wield it with one hand, unless you had trained all your life as a knight to wield such heavy objects.
Right. Interesting. Okay, so that concludes the first segment of this. Now my two other questions are very fairly personal questions. I know you joined? When did you first hear about Dagger here?
I first heard about Dagger here probably 2 or 3 years ago at my friend's house, Owen's house. It was actually his mother that found out.
Oh, interesting.
Then I told a few people. One of those people actually happened to be you. And a few years later, we actually managed to organize enough to find a local group and join.
Yeah. So we've been officially part of Do or Dagner since August of 2008. So that's over a year. We've been doing it for well over that time period. What does Dagger here mean to you personally?
Dagger here to me personally means a good way to get in between the fighting aspects of using a outdated weapon, such as the sword, and such as doing a tabletop game like Dungeons & Dragons, which there is no actual combat involved. It's all dice and up in your imagination. But Dagger here adds the element that you have combat, but yet at the same time, this isn't the SCA. There are role-playing events, there are really high-pitched battles, and there are also just events that are specifically about developing your character. To me, I just like having that balance between fighting, and, well, let's just roll the dice and see how many hit points of damage I did to you. I mean, it allows me to maybe I'm not so strong at fighting one day. Well, maybe if we decide that we're going to roleplay it a little bit more, I can roleplay it a little bit more and fight a little harder another day.
Interesting. And now, so it's essentially, you think that it's so if you had to sum it up, you'd say that it's a good balance between fighting and role playing. Because I know that there are a lot of organizations out there like Bellegarde that focus on fighting, or Amtgard that focus on role playing. And you think that Dagger here sort of strikes a balance between the two?
Yes, I think it does.
Right, and I think definitely a lot of people would agree with you on that. I mean, they have all you have to do is look on the events forum, and some of them are fighting, some of them are feasts based around role playing. So I definitely understand where you're coming from, about how it's unique. So that being said, what are some of your dislikes about Dagger here? Is there anything that you don't particularly like about it?
Yes, there are. One of my dislikes is the fact that some bits of it are not completely historically accurate. An opponent I will not name here, I was fairly annoyed at one day when I was fighting with them, since I have been actually fighting longer, and I feel that, historically speaking, if I was using a historically accurate weapon against their historically accurate weapon, I would grind them through the floor. But what they were using allowed them to defeat me easier than I think they should have been able to do so. And I did not exactly like their courtesy at the end of the fight. It wasn't exactly up to scratch, in my opinion. And although one of the things I do like about Dagger here is the fact that it's one of the few sports that I do that allows me to use an outdated weapon and feel accepted.